Sarah Chun stood at the window of the human ship as it moved slowly toward the massive space station. She had never seen anything so big in her life. The Galactic Confederation headquarters was like a small moon made of metal and lights. Ships from dozens of different worlds flew around it like insects around a bright lamp. "Are you ready for this?" asked Captain Williams, standing behind her. He was the military leader of their mission, but Sarah was the one who would do the talking. She was Earth's first ambassador to the galaxy. "I think so," Sarah said, watching alien ships that looked nothing like human designs. Some were long and thin like needles. Others were round like balls. A few looked like they were made of crystal and light. "Do you think they will like us?" Captain Williams was quiet for a moment. "I hope so. We're offering them everything we have." Sarah nodded. In the cargo holds of their ship were examples of humanity's best technology. Medical machines that could heal almost any disease. Power systems that could give clean energy to entire planets. Farming methods that could grow food in deserts and dead soil. Earth's leaders had decided to share it all freely with the galaxy. The human race had spent 300 years learning to work together after nearly destroying themselves in wars. They had cleaned their polluted planet and ended hunger and disease. Now they wanted to help other worlds do the same thing. "Incoming message from the station," said the communications officer. "They're giving us permission to dock." As their ship moved closer, Sarah could see the docking bay was huge. Ships from many different worlds were already there. She tried to count how many different types there were, but gave up after 20. Each one looked stranger than the last. "Remember," Captain Williams said quietly, "we represent all of humanity today. Every person back on Earth is counting on U.S. Sarah touched the datapad in her hand. It contained detailed plans for all the technology they were offering. Earth scientists had worked for months to translate everything into the common galactic language. They wanted to make sure there were no misunderstandings. The docking process took an hour. When it was finished, a group of aliens came aboard to meet them. Sarah had seen pictures before, but meeting them in person was different. The first alien was tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. This was Ambassador Kresh of the Korthani Empire. The Korthani were known as great warriors who had conquered many worlds. The second alien looked more like a machine than a living being. Its body was made of metal and crystal, with lights that blinked in patterns. This was Trade Voice Zephyr 9. Representing the Zephyrian Trade Union, the Zephyrians controlled most of the galaxy's business and commerce. The third alien was the strangest. It looked like a tall human wearing a dark robe, but Sarah could not see its face. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. This was Mindspeaker Velth of the Veil Collective. The Veil were said to have powerful mental abilities. "Welcome to Confederation space," said Ambassador Kresh. His voice was deep and rough. "We have heard interesting things about your species." "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Sarah said, bowing slightly as she had been taught. "Humanity is honored to be here." Trade Voice Zephyr 9's lights flashed in what Sarah hoped was a friendly pattern. "Your initial technology samples were most impressive. We are eager to discuss trade agreements." "We're not here to trade," Sarah said. Carefully, "We're here to share. Humanity believes that all intelligent life should work together for the good of everyone." The 3 aliens looked at each other. Sarah could not read their expressions, but she sensed surprise. Mindspeaker Velth's voice whispered in the air. Around them, "Share freely, without payment or benefit to yourselves. This is unusual." "Not unusual for humans," Captain Williams said. "We learned long ago that helping others helps ourselves in the long run." Ambassador Kresh made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your species is young. You will learn that the galaxy is not so simple." They were escorted through the station to a large meeting room. The walls were covered with symbols from hundreds of different worlds. At the center was a table that could change shape to accommodate different types of beings. As they walked, Sarah noticed something that made her uncomfortable. Other aliens they passed stared at the humans with expressions she could not identify. Some seemed curious, but others looked at them the way people might look at interesting animals. In the meeting room, dozens of alien representatives were waiting. Sarah had studied files on many of them, but seeing them all together was overwhelming. The galaxy contains so much diversity of life. The formal presentations began. Sarah stood and activated the holographic display they had brought from Earth. Members of the Galactic Confederation, she began. Humanity comes before you with open hands and open hearts. We have spent centuries learning to live in peace with each other and with our world. Now, we want to share what we have learned with all of you. The hologram showed images of Earth cities, where humans of all colors and cultures live together. It showed hospitals where the sick were healed for free, and farms that produced enough food for everyone. We offer you our medical technology. Sarah continued. These nano-machines can cure diseases that have plagued your worlds for generations. We offer you our clean energy systems that can power your cities without harming your planets. We offer you our agricultural methods that can end hunger wherever they are used. Murmurs filled the room as the aliens discussed what they were seeing. Some sounded excited, others suspicious. And what do you want in return? Asked a beetle-like alien from the back of the room. Friendship, Sarah said simply. We want to be part of this galactic community. We want to learn from you as you learn from us. We believe the universe is vast enough for all of us to grow and thrive together. Ambassador Kresh leaned forward. You would give away technology that could be worth trillions of credits? We would share it, Sarah corrected. Money means little if entire populations are suffering from diseases we could cure or famines we could prevent. For several hours, they answered questions about human technology and culture. The aliens seemed particularly interested in how humans had ended their wars and unified their planet. You had wars among your own kind? Asked Trade Voice Zephyr 9. How did you overcome such primitive instincts? Captain Williams answered this time. We learned that working together made us all stronger than fighting each other. It took time. But we realized that our differences made us better, not worse. When the formal session ended, the three main ambassadors approached Sarah privately. Your proposal is interesting, said Ambassador Kresh. The Confederation will need time to consider it. Of course, Sarah said. We understand this is a big decision. Mindspeaker Velf's voice seemed to come from inside her head. There are many in the galaxy who would see humans as naive children. You should be careful who you trust. We choose to trust until given reason not to, Sarah replied. That's how we've always made friends. As the human delegation returned to their ship, Captain Williams walked beside Sarah. How do you think it went? He asked. Sarah looked back at the massive station, thinking about all the different species they had met. I think we planted seeds. Today, whether they grow into friendship or something else will depend on choices that haven't been made yet. She did not know that in private chambers throughout the station, alien leaders were already making those choices. They were not the choices humanity hoped for. 3 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Confederation. Sarah Chen no longer felt like the hopeful young woman who had first stepped onto the alien station. She had learned many hard lessons about galactic politics. The human colonies were thriving, or so it seemed on the surface. 23 worlds now flew the blue and green flag of Earth. Humans had built cities, farms, and research centers throughout what the aliens called the Frontier Zone. The Confederation had been generous in giving humanity these systems to colonize. Sarah stood in the command center of New Geneva, humanity's administrative capital in space. Through the large windows, she could see human ships coming and going. Children who had been born on these distant worlds played in parks that had once been empty rock and soil. Ma'am, we have another trade dispute with the Zephyrians, said Lieutenant Commander Park, one of Sarah's assistants. They're claiming our food shipments don't meet quality standards again. Sarah frowned. This was the 5th such complaint this month. What's different about our food now compared to last year? Nothing, Park replied. If anything, our quality has improved. Our new growing methods are producing better crops than ever. Sarah had noticed many small problems like this recently. trade disputes that made no sense, shipping delays that seemed to happen only to human cargo, technical problems with communication systems that only affected human colonies. Any word from the Corthony about the mining rights on Kepler 442? Sarah asked. Park's expression grew darker. They've decided to review our agreement again. Something about environmental concerns. Sarah almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. The Corthony had strip-mined dozens of worlds with no care for the environment. Now they were worried about humans using gentle extraction methods that actually helped the local ecosystem. The Veil Collective? Still requesting more detailed information about our medical technology. They say they need to understand it better for safety reasons. Sarah had been an ambassador long enough to recognize patterns. The aliens were not acting like friends anymore. They were acting like competitors, or worse. Her communication device beeped with an urgent message. The signal was coming from the outer colonies near the edge of human space. Ambassador Chun, came the voice of Colonel Rodriguez from the colony ship Harmony. We have a problem out here, a big one. Sarah activated the main display. Colonel Rodriguez appeared on the screen, and Sarah could see smoke in the background behind him. What's happening, Colonel? We're under attack. Corthony warships appeared without warning and started firing on our orbital platforms. They're demanding we evacuate the planet immediately. Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. On what grounds? They claim the system belongs to them now. Something about an old territorial dispute that was never resolved. Rodriguez ducked as an explosion lit up the sky behind him. Ma'am, they're not trying to capture anything. They're just destroying everything we've built. Sarah immediately opened channels to the Confederation headquarters. I need to speak with Ambassador Kresh immediately. After several minutes of delays, Kresh's face appeared on her screen. He looked calm, almost bored. Ambassador Shun, I understand there is some confusion about territorial boundaries. There's no confusion, Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. The Harmony colony is on a world that was officially granted to humanity 3 years ago. You have the same documents I do. But we have discovered older claims that take priority. The Corthony Empire has ancient rights to that system. Sarah stared at him. Ancient rights that you never mentioned until now? Kresh's expression did not change. The galaxy is old, Ambassador. Many claims exist that younger species might not understand. Before Sarah could respond, another urgent signal came in. This time from 3 different colonies at once. Ma'am, Lieutenant Commander Park called out. We're getting emergency signals from Darwin 3, New Tokyo, and Harvest Station. All reporting attacks. Sarah's blood went cold. These colonies were spread across human space. There was no way this was a coincidence. On her screen, Kresh was still talking. Perhaps humans expanded too quickly. The frontier can be dangerous for those who do not understand its complexities. You're attacking civilian populations, Sarah said, her voice rising. These people have done nothing wrong. The Corthony Empire is simply protecting its interests. We suggest you relocate your people to safer areas. The connection cut off. Sarah immediately tried to contact Trade Voice Zephyr9 and Mindspeaker. Velth, neither would accept her calls. Over the next 6 hours, the scope of the disaster became clear. It was not just the Corthony attacking human colonies. Zephyrian trade ships were blocking supply routes to human worlds, claiming sudden health emergencies that required quarantine. The Veil Collective was broadcasting strange mental influences that were causing panic and confusion on colonies with Veil populations. The attacks were coordinated, they were planned. And they were devastating. Sarah watched in horror as reports came in from across human space. The orbital defense platforms that Earth had built to protect the colonies were being overwhelmed. Human ships that tried to help were being destroyed by weapons that seemed far more advanced than anything the aliens had shown before. Ma'am, Park said quietly, the casualty reports are coming in. Sarah did not want to ask, but she had to. No. How many? Over 2 billion confirmed dead in the first wave. The Corthony are using some kind of new weapon that turns our own atmosphere against us. Entire cities are being wiped out in minutes. Sarah sat down heavily. 2 billion people. More than had died in all of Earth's wars combined. And this was just the beginning. Are we getting any help from other Confederation members? Park shook his head. None. They're all claiming they need to remain neutral while the situation is investigated. Sarah understood now. This was not an accident or a misunderstanding. This was planned genocide. And the entire Confederation was either helping or allowing it to happen. Her communication board lit up with a direct message from Earth. President Martinez appeared on her screen, his face grave. Sarah, we're seeing the reports. How bad is it really? It's not a territorial dispute, Mr. President. They're trying to wipe us out. All of us. President Martinez was quiet for a long moment. What about our agreements? Our treaties? They don't care about treaties. They're using our own technology against us. The medical nanobots we shared have been modified into weapons. The clean energy systems are being overloaded to create explosions. They planned this from the beginning. So we were never partners. We were just resources to be harvested. Sarah nodded, feeling sick. They let us build the colonies so we would spread out. Now they can attack us everywhere at once while Earth is too far away to help quickly. Another urgent signal came in. This time it was from the colony ship New Horizon. Captain Lisa Wong appeared on the screen, her uniform torn and bloody. Ambassador, this is our final transmission. The Corthony have surrounded our world. They're not accepting surrender. They're not taking prisoners. Explosions were getting closer to her position. I need you to know something. Our scientists have been analyzing their weapons. They're not just using our technology. They've been planning this for years, maybe decades. Captain, can you escape? Wong shook her head. No, ma'am. But I need you to get a message to Earth. Tell them the truth about what's happening out here. Tell them. Her voice was cut off by static. Sarah tried to reconnect, but the signal was gone. Another colony was dead. Lieutenant Commander Park. Sarah said, her voice now deadly calm. Open a channel to Earth, Priority Alpha. Yes, ma'am. Sarah looked directly into the camera as the connection established. She knew this message would reach not just President Martinez, but the entire leadership of Earth. Mr. President, members of the Council, this is Ambassador Sarah Chun with my final diplomatic report. The Galactic Confederation has declared war on humanity through coordinated attacks across all our colonies. They have used our own freely given technology as weapons against us. They are systematically murdering civilian populations. She paused. As another explosion shook the station, through the windows she could see Corthony warships approaching. They made one critical mistake. They assumed we were weak because we chose peace. They assumed we were naive because we offered friendship. They thought we were helpless because we trusted them. Sarah's voice grew harder. They have now learned that humanity chose to be peaceful. We were not forced to be peaceful. The choice of what we become next is no longer ours to make. They have made it for us. The Corthony ships were firing on the station now. Sarah could hear her people evacuating. In the background, Mr. President, I recommend you recall every human ship, every human citizen, everyone who can make it back to Earth. Let them think they have won. Let them think they have destroyed us. Sarah smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Then, show them what happens when humanity stops holding back. The transmission cut off as the station's power failed. In the darkness, Sarah could hear the alien ships closing in, but she was no longer afraid. She was thinking about something Captain Williams had told her 3 years ago, something she had not understood at the time. Humanity spent 300 years learning to work together after. 6 months after the attacks began, the galaxy had become a very quiet place. Ambassador Kresh stood in the main conference room of the Confederation headquarters. Looking at displays that showed human space, every screen was dark. Every communication channel was silent. For half a year, there had been no signals from any human world, including Earth itself. Are we certain they are all dead? Asked Trade Voice Zephyr 9. The machine's lights flickered in patterns that showed uncertainty. Our Scouts report no activity, Kresh replied. No ships moving between their worlds. No energy signatures from their cities. No responses to any communication attempts. Mindspeaker Velth's voice whispered through the room. Perhaps we were too effective. The human spirit appears to have been completely broken. The three leaders had been meeting regularly to discuss the division of former human territories. The Korthani wanted the mining worlds. The Zephyrians claimed the agricultural planets. The Vale Collective desired the research stations where humans had developed their advanced technology. We should begin colonization efforts, Kresh said. The longer we wait, the more other species might try to claim these valuable systems. Trade Voice Zephyr 9 agreed. My calculations show optimal resource extraction can begin within 2 standard months. The human infrastructure is mostly intact and can be repurposed. But something had been bothering Kresh lately. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen a species simply disappear like this. Usually there were refugees, resistance groups, or desperate attempts to negotiate surrender. The humans had just stopped. Have our intelligence services learned anything about Earth itself? Kresh asked. The homeworld appears completely dark, Velth replied. No electromagnetic emissions. No signs of life. It is as if the entire species simply gave up. Kresh nodded, but he felt uneasy. The humans had been naive and trusting, but they had not seemed like a species that would give up easily. Their history files showed they had fought countless wars on their own world before learning to work together. Sir, came a voice from behind them. A young Korthani officer approached. We have a scouting report from the Darwin 3 system. What did they find? Kresh asked. Nothing, sir, but the orbital platforms are gone. Kresh frowned. Gone? Destroyed? No, sir, just ... not debris, not wreckage. Gone completely as if they were never there. Trade Voice Zephyr 9's lights flashed rapidly. That is impossible. Those platforms were massive structures. They cannot simply disappear. Show me the sensor data, Kresh ordered. The young officer activated a holographic display. It showed the Darwin 3 system as it had been during the attack 6 months ago, with large orbital defense platforms around the planet. Then it showed the same system now. Empty space where the platforms had been. Could they have been moved? Kresh asked. Sir, each platform was the size of a small moon. The energy required to move them would be enormous. And we would have detected such an operation. Kresh stared at the display. This made no sense. But before he could think about it more, another officer arrived with urgent news. Sirs, we're receiving reports from multiple systems. The same thing is happening everywhere we had human colonies. What same thing? Velth demanded. Infrastructure is disappearing. Not just the orbital platforms. Entire cities, spaceports, manufacturing facilities. Everything the humans built is just ... vanishing. The room fell silent. Kresh felt a cold feeling in his stomach that he had not experienced since he was a young warrior. Show me everything, he ordered. For the next hour they reviewed reports from across what had been human space. The pattern was the same everywhere. First the humans had gone silent. Now their constructions were disappearing without a trace. This has to be some kind of technology we don't understand, Trade Voice Zephyr 9 said. Perhaps they are using their advanced systems to relocate their infrastructure. To where? Kresh asked. And why wait 6 months to start? Mindspeaker. Velth had been unusually quiet. Now its voice filled the room with an emotion none of them had heard before. Fear. I have been trying to sense human minds across their former territories. For months I found nothing, but now I sense something else. What? Kresh demanded. Waiting. They are waiting. Who is waiting? The humans are dead. Are they? Velth's voice was barely a whisper. What if we saw only what they wanted? The U.S. to see? Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. A communications officer ran into the room. Sirs, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from Earth. Kresh felt his blood freeze. That's impossible. Earth is dark, dead. Sir, you need to see this. They rushed to the main communications center. On the largest screen, an image was forming. It showed a human woman in a military uniform that none of them recognized. She was standing in what appeared to be a command center filled with technology that looked far more advanced than anything humans had shown before. "Greetings, members of the Galactic Confederation," the woman said. Her voice was calm, but there was something in her eyes that made Kresh step backward. "I am Admiral Chun, Supreme Commander of the Terran Defense Force." Kresh realized this had to be related to Ambassador Sarah Chun, but this woman looked harder, more dangerous. "You have been wondering what happened to humanity," Admiral Chun continued. "You assumed we were defeated. You assumed we were broken. You assumed we were dead. These assumptions were incorrect." The camera pulled back to show more of the command center. Humans in military uniforms were working at stations that displayed information in languages and symbols the aliens had never seen. For 6 months, we have been preparing, we have been remembering, we have been becoming what we chose not to be for 300 years. Trade Voice Zephyr 9's lights were flashing in panic patterns. "How are they still alive? We destroyed their colonies. We killed billions of them." Admiral Chun seemed to hear the question. "You killed 12 billion humans in your first attack. We remember every single one. But what you did not know is that every human you killed had been volunteering to live in the most dangerous areas of space. Every colony you destroyed had been built with the understanding that it might be sacrificed. If humanity was ever betrayed..." The display changed to show what looked like the interior of a massive space station, but far larger than anything in the galaxy. Every human colony was equipped with quantum tunneling systems. Every human citizen carried nanobotic backup systems. Every piece of human infrastructure was designed to be quickly relocated if necessary. What you saw as destruction was actually extraction. Kresh could not believe what he was hearing. They faked their own deaths? "We did not fake anything," Admiral Chun said, her voice growing colder. "You killed the bodies of 12 billion humans, but we had prepared for betrayal since the day we left Earth. Every human consciousness was stored. Every memory was preserved. Every soul was saved." The display now showed vast chambers filled with what looked like sleeping humans in technological pods. "Those you murdered are alive again. Those you thought you had defeated are waiting for orders, and those orders are about to be given." Mindspeaker Velth's voice was shaking. "What are you?" Admiral Chun smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression any of them had ever seen. "We are what we tried not to be. We are what 300 years of peace taught us to control. We are what you forced us to become when you chose war over friendship." The camera showed corridors filled with humans, but these were not the peaceful farmers and scientists the aliens remembered. These humans moved with purpose and discipline that spoke of military training beyond anything the galaxy had seen. For 3 centuries, humanity learned to suppress its greatest talent. We learned to hide our most terrible gift. We learned to pretend we were not the species that had conquered the most dangerous world in the known galaxy through endless warfare. The display changed again, showing images of Earth's history. Wars fought with weapons that made Korthani technology look primitive. Strategies that would have impressed the greatest military minds in the galaxy. You saw our kindness and mistook it for weakness. You saw our peace and thought it was helplessness. You saw our trust and believed it was stupidity. Admiral Chun leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. "You have made the greatest mistake in galactic history. You have given humanity a reason to stop pretending to be something we are not." The transmission cut off, leaving the alien leaders staring at a blank screen in complete silence. Outside the station, space remained empty and quiet. But now that quietness felt different. It no longer felt like death. It felt like something large and dangerous waiting in the dark. The first human attack came exactly 24 hours after Admiral Chun's transmission. It was not what the galaxy expected. General Vask of the Korthani Third Fleet was commanding a patrol near the former human colony of New Geneva when his sensors detected something impossible. Ships were appearing out of empty space. not jumping from hyperspace or warping in from distant systems. They were simply appearing as if they had been invisible and had suddenly chosen to be seen. "Sir, I count 50 vessels," his sensor officer reported. "No, wait, 80. The number keeps changing." General Vask studied the display. The human ships looked nothing like the peaceful vessels they had seen before. These were sleek, dark, and somehow seemed to bend light around them. "Open fire," Vask ordered. "All weapons." The Korthani fleet fired with everything they had. Energy beams, plasma missiles, and graviton torpedoes filled the space between the two fleets. But something was wrong. The human ships were not trying to dodge. They were flying straight through the weapons fire. "Sir, our weapons are having no effect," the tactical officer reported. "The energy beams are passing right through them." "That's impossible." "Recalibrate the weapons." "Sir, the weapons are functioning normally. It's the ships. They're not entirely solid." Before Vask could respond, the human ships opened fire. But these were not the energy weapons the galaxy knew. Streams of something that looked like liquid. Starlight struck the Korthani vessels. Where the streams hit, sections of the ships simply stopped existing. "What kind of weapon is that?" Vask demanded. "I don't know, sir." "It's not energy, not matter. It's something else entirely." The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. When it was over, the entire Korthani Third Fleet was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged, gone, as if it had never existed. The human ships disappeared again, leaving only empty space and confused distress. Signals from Korthani Command. Across the galaxy, similar attacks were happening. Trade Voice Zephyr 9 received reports of Zephyrian cargo fleets vanishing without trace. Mindspeaker Velth felt the sudden silence as entire Vale colonies lost contact with the collective. But the humans were not just attacking. They were sending messages. On every communication channel in the galaxy, the same transmission appeared. It was Admiral Chun again, but now she was standing in what looked like the bridge of a warship. "People of the galaxy," she began, "you are witnessing the return of humanity to its true nature. For 6 months you believed you had destroyed us. You divided our worlds among yourselves. You celebrated our extinction." The image changed to show footage of alien leaders discussing how to split up human territories. "But you did not destroy us. You educated us. You taught us that peace is not possible with those who choose war. You taught us that trust is dangerous when given to those who see kindness as weakness." Now the display showed human fleets moving through space. But these fleets were massive beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships the size of moons, accompanied by smaller vessels that moved like living things. "We offer the galaxy a choice," Admiral Chun continued. "Surrender now, and you will live. Continue to fight, and you will learn why humanity conquered Earth so completely that we needed 300 years to learn how to stop conquering." The transmission ended, but the attacks continued. The Korthani Empire, proud of their military might, chose to fight. They assembled their greatest war fleet, 1,000 ships commanded by their most experienced generals. They would show these humans what real warriors could do. The human response was swift. A single human vessel appeared in the middle of the Korthani fleet. It was smaller than most of the alien ships, but when it moved, space itself seemed to bend around it. The Korthani opened fire with everything they had. The human ship did not dodge or block the attacks. Instead, it seemed to absorb them. With each hit, the ship grew brighter and larger. Then it struck back. The weapon it used was unlike anything in galactic history. It did not fire energy or projectiles. Instead, it somehow convinced the Korthani ships that they were no longer ships. Metal became dust. Energy systems became empty space. Life support systems became nothing at all. In less than 10 minutes. The greatest fleet in Korthani. History was reduced to scattered atoms floating in space. The Zephyrian Trade Union tried a different approach. They offered to negotiate, to make deals, to find a compromise that would benefit everyone. They sent their most skilled diplomats to contact the humans. The human response was a demonstration of economic warfare that the Zephyrians had never imagined possible. In a single day, the humans crashed every major currency in the galaxy. Trade routes that had existed for thousands of years suddenly became unprofitable. Resources that had been valuable became worthless overnight. The humans had not just learned Zephyrian trade methods during their 3 years in the galaxy. They had improved them. They had turned economics into a weapon more devastating than any bomb. Zephyrian corporations that had existed for millennia went bankrupt in hours. Trade stations that had been the centers of galactic commerce became empty shells floating in space. The Veil Collective, masters of mental manipulation, attempted to use their psychic abilities against the humans. This was their greatest mistake. When the Veil tried to enter human minds, they discovered something that horrified them. Human consciousness was not like other species. It was layered, protected, and filled with defenses that had been built through thousands of years of competitive thinking. Worse, human minds contained something the Veil had never encountered before. Imagination combined with strategic thinking. The ability to create scenarios that had never existed and plan for possibilities that had never happened. When the Veil tried to control human thoughts, they found themselves trapped in mental mazes, created by minds that had spent centuries playing games, solving puzzles, and creating stories. Every human mind was like a fortress designed to resist exactly the kind of attack the Veil specialized in, but the humans did more than just resist. They counterattacked, using technology they had hidden for centuries. The humans turned the Veil's own abilities against them. Psychic attacks became psychic feedback loops. Mental domination became mental confusion. The Veil found their own minds being rewritten by human thoughts. Within weeks, half the Veil Collective was no longer following their ancient leaders. They were following new ideas, human ideas about cooperation and individual freedom. As the war continued, the galaxy began to understand the true scope of what they faced. The humans were not just better at war than expected. They were better at everything than expected. Their technology was not just advanced, it was revolutionary. They had weapons that manipulated the basic forces of reality, ships that existed in multiple dimensions at once, communication systems that worked faster than light itself. Their strategy was not just clever, it was comprehensive. Every human attack served multiple purposes. Every victory weakened their enemies while strengthening human positions. They fought as if they had been planning this war for centuries, because in a way they had, most terrifying of all, the humans seemed to enjoy it. After centuries of forcing themselves to be peaceful, they had returned to what they were naturally good at. And they were very, very good at it. On worlds throughout the galaxy, alien populations watched the news with growing fear. The humans were not just winning. They were winning so completely that resistance seemed pointless, but the humans were also showing mercy in ways that confused their enemies. They would destroy military targets completely, but they would spare civilian populations. They would eliminate governments that opposed them, but they would protect cultures and traditions. It was as if they were not trying to conquer the galaxy, they were trying to remake it. Admiral Chun appeared on galactic communication networks. Again, this time from what looked like the bridge of a space station the size of a small planet. "The demonstration phase is complete," she announced. "You have seen what humanity is capable of when we choose to remember our true nature. Now you will see what we choose to do with that capability." Behind her, displays showed human fleets surrounding every major alien world. "Not attacking, not threatening, just waiting. The galaxy chose war," Admiral Chun said. "Now humanity chooses what comes next." 1 year after the human counterattack began, the galaxy was a very different place. Admiral Chun stood before the newly built Galactic Assembly, looking out at representatives from what remained of the old Confederation species. The Great Hall was on a space station orbiting Earth, and through the massive windows, delegates could see the blue and green world that had produced humanity. The audience was much smaller than it had been in the old Confederation, where once there had been hundreds of species represented. Now there were only a few dozen. Not because the others were dead, but because most species had been reduced to small populations living on their homeworlds under human protection. The Corthony delegation consisted of 12 individuals instead of the thousands they once commanded. The Zephyrian Trade Union was represented by a single AI unit, all that remained of their vast corporate network. The Veil Collective had been scattered, with most choosing to live as individuals rather than as part of their old psychic collective. Members of the Galactic Assembly, Admiral Chun began, 1 year ago you made a choice. You chose to see humanity's friendship as weakness. You chose to see our trust as stupidity. You chose war over peace. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Many would not meet her eyes. Today, we gather to discuss what comes next. Not because we must ask your permission, but because we choose to include you in the decision. Admiral Chun activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Human territories now covered 90% of civilized space. Earth had become the undisputed center of galactic civilization. The old Confederation is dead, its military is destroyed. Its economy has collapsed. Its political structure has been completely dismantled. You might wonder why you are still alive to sit in this hall? She paused, looking directly at Ambassador Kresh, who was one of the surviving Corthony representatives. You are alive because humanity chose mercy over justice. We could have done to you what you did to us. We could have wiped out entire species as you tried to wipe out ours. Instead, we made a different choice. The display changed to show images of alien homeworlds. Instead of the devastation that might have been expected, they showed carefully maintained cities and protected populations. We established the Terran Compact. Under this system, species that choose cooperation and genuine peace will thrive under human guidance. Those that choose aggression will face the consequences. The choice is always yours to make. Trade Voice Zephyr9's lights flickered in what might have been curiosity. What does cooperation mean in practical terms? Admiral Chun smiled, and, unlike her earlier expressions, this one held warmth. It means exactly what we offered you 4 years ago, before you chose betrayal. We share our technology, our knowledge, and our resources. In return, you contribute what you can to the greater good of all species. And if we refuse? Asked a delegate from a species that had remained neutral during the war. Then you remain on your homeworld, protected but isolated until you change your mind. We will not force you to cooperate, but we will not allow you to harm others. Mindspeaker Velf, speaking for the remnants of the Veil Collective, whispered into the minds of those present. What assurance do we have that humanity will not become the tyrants you claim to oppose? Admiral Chun considered the question seriously. None, except our history and our nature. We spent 300 years learning to live in peace with ourselves. We chose to trust you when we could have conquered you from the beginning. We offered friendship when we could have demanded submission. The display now showed images of human society, both on Earth and on the rebuilt colonies. Different species were visible, living and working alongside humans as equals. But perhaps more importantly, we are not designed to be eternal rulers. Humans grow bored with absolute power. We prefer challenges, growth, and new experiences. Our goal is not to control the galaxy forever, but to guide it until it no longer needs guidance. Ambassador Kresh spoke for the first time since entering the hall. You destroyed our fleets, our armies, our entire military capability. How do we know you will not simply eliminate us when we are no longer useful? Because, Admiral Chun replied, we had the capability to eliminate you from the moment we arrived in galactic space 4 years ago. We chose not to. We chose friendship. Instead, when you forced us to choose war, we still chose to spare your civilian populations. Our nature has not changed. We are still the same species that offered you free medical technology and clean energy. She gestured to the windows showing Earth. We are also still the species that conquered the most dangerous world in the galaxy through thousands of years of warfare. You experience what happens when we remember that side of our nature. The choice of which side you see depends on the choices you make. The assembly was quiet for several minutes. Finally, a delegate from a small species that had lost many worlds in the conflict spoke up. What happened to our people who died in the war? You saved your own dead using advanced technology, what about ours? Admiral Chin's expression became sad. We tried to save as many as we could once we understood what was happening. Some we were able to preserve using the same techniques we used for our own people, but many were lost before we could reach them. The display showed memorial gardens on dozens of worlds where humans and aliens together honored the dead from all species. We carry the responsibility for those deaths. If we had revealed our true capabilities from the beginning, the war might never have happened. If we had been less trusting, fewer innocents might have died. These are choices we must live with. Young Zephyrian spoke up, one of the few individuals from their species to survive the economic collapse. Why should we trust you now? You deceived us about your capabilities. How do we know you are not deceiving us about your intentions? Admiral Chun nodded approvingly. That is an excellent question, and exactly the kind of thinking that will help rebuild galactic civilization. You should not trust us completely. You should verify our actions, question our decisions, and hold us accountable for our promises. She gestured to the assembly hall itself. This body exists not just to hear announcements, but to provide oversight. Every major decision affecting galactic civilization will be discussed here. You will have voices in shaping the future, even. If the final authority rests with humanity, and if we disagree with your decisions, asked Mindspeaker Velth, then you argue your position, present your evidence, and try to convince us we are wrong. If you succeed, we change course. If you fail, you accept the decision and work within it. That is how democracy works. Admiral Chun walked closer to the alien delegates. I want to tell you something that may help you understand humanity better. We did not enjoy the war. We are good at it, but we did not enjoy it. Every human who participated in the conflict has been receiving psychological counseling to help them readjust to peaceful thinking. The display showed human soldiers and ship crews meeting with counselors and therapists. We forced ourselves to remember skills we had spent centuries learning to suppress. It was necessary, but it was also traumatic for us. We want to return to being the species that builds hospitals and farms, not the species that destroys fleets and collapses economies. She returned to the center of the hall. The Terran Compact offers you a path back to prosperity and growth. Species that join willingly will receive full access to human technology and knowledge. You will be equal partners in exploration, research, and development. Your cultures will be preserved and celebrated. Your people will have opportunities they never had under the old Confederation. And if we refuse, Ambassador Kresh asked again, then you remain under protection on your homeworlds. You will be safe, fed, and cared for. But you will not be part of galactic civilization. You will not have access to new worlds, new technologies, or new opportunities. You will exist, but you will not grow. Admiral Chun looked each delegate in the eyes. The choice is yours. But I want you to understand what you are choosing between. Under the old Confederation, you competed with each other for resources and territory. You fought wars, exploited weaker species, and lived in constant fear of each other. The display now showed a vision of the future under the Terran Compact. Humans and aliens working together to explore new galaxies, develop technologies that seemed like magic, and solve problems that had plagued civilization for millennia. Under the Terran Compact, we work together toward goals none of us could achieve alone. We explore the universe not as competitors, but as partners. We share knowledge. Not for profit, but for the advancement of all life. She paused, then spoke the words that would be remembered for generations. My mother offered you partnership 4 years ago. You chose to see her as an enemy and make us your opponents. We have shown you the cost of that choice. Now I offer you something different. Not partnership as equals, because that trust was broken, but mercy from those with power. The choice of what you become next is still yours to make. But understand this, Admiral Chun continued, her voice growing firm. Humanity trusted once. When that trust was broken, we became judges. The galaxy now knows what we are capable of. When forced to remember our true nature, the question now is what you choose to become in response.